Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. We're here with the European Challenger Finals. It is it's just 7 a.m. here in Burbank, California. I'm Nathanius, joined by Zombie Grub, as we take you through the rest of the action. But we've got another Terran versus Zerg. TVZ. No better matchup to wake everybody up and get everyone pumped, Zombie Grub.
There really isn't, especially when it's a shocking TVZ result full of nothing but bio as well.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah. I like Euthermal bringing out the cheddar, though. I think it was really smart. He did a really good job. And then, like, the King's Cove game, just, 3 trillion IQ with the, you are expecting 3 Rax Marine.
Yeah. The Reaper follow-up is, actually, I think at a Pro Denver on Twitter say you can't wait to see that on ladder. I think he was being sarcastic. I don't know.
No, I think that, well that's definitely going to happen. We've got another Terran versus Zerg as we were talking about. And, yeah, that throws this whole thing for a loop, because honestly, I think a lot of people are probably looking at a rematch from WCS Winter between Cyril and Raynor, but that is not going to happen. Anyway, here are our 2 players. In the northeast of Elazer, we have the red Terran player. He is HeroMarine. AKA Big Gabe.
In the top left, as the blue Zerg, it is Elazer.
I'm pleasantly surprised. I thought that HeroMarine was going to be the promised prince of this WCS Challenger top 8. But Euthermal definitely makes things very interesting there. It didn't have to show too much other than those very aggressive builds. But that's one way to do it. I do think that the build variety is extremely important. Even with that bio, just being able to vary the openers enough that Raynor was never really comfortable as big. And I'm looking to see how HeroMarine does that against Elazer, because I think it will be similarly very crucial to winning this match if HeroMarine wants to move on.
It's kind of weird, though, for me. Like, Euthermal versus Raynor could have been 2 hyper-aggressive, like, Zerg versus Terran, right? But Raynor was actually kind of the one thrown off and wasn't as aggressive or as run-by as we usually call him. But for this match, looking at it just as is right now, maybe it would be very different once you get into the nitty-gritty. But HeroMarine is the old standard, right? Like, if he just does macro, then, okay, that's expected, whether it's mech or bio. But Elazer is the one that, despite talking about his, want to continue improving his foundations, his macro and whatnot, still is the guy that can be a little bit cheesy, a little bit all-in-y, a little bit aggressive. And it's like, for me, I think HeroMarine does take this in the macro sense, unless Elazer shows up today really hard. But Elazer could be the one that mixes things up with a couple of different styles.
Definitely a very good point to bring up. This is the first of our 3 TVZs that I would say the Terran player is the favorite going into it. Elazer is not a bad Zerg player, but it's not the same situation where we look at it like, wow, you want to just play a long macro game against Cyril? Like, you're a buffoon. Or similarly against Raynor, right? Like, you have to really mix it up a lot against them. HeroMarine, and I guess I'll give some credit there. He doesn't need to mix it up as much as I might be suggesting for this particular matchup, although I think it's always good to take advantage of the biggest edge Terran has in this particular matchup, because there are so many builds that you can do, so many unit compositions that are viable in the long game, that keeping the Zerg guessing is the biggest strength of Terran right now against Zerg.
And you can certainly say that's a weakness of HeroMarine. He streams a lot, he's very vocal about his opinions. He said, a couple times, I don't think this build or that build's actually very good. And while he does occasionally throw out the odd build or the interesting Hellbat attack with Marauders or something like that, he is not going to change up nearly as much as Euthermal, for instance, last game. So that's something that, when his series versus Cyril, the rematch in Winter, the quarterfinals, whatever we would call it in that specific format, he kind of got reverse bopped because he did the same thing that he did against Cyril in the round robin. So that you could certainly say that's a weakness of his. And Elazer could come in here feeling maybe comfortable, facing HeroMarine, okay, I kind of know what I'm gonna expect here. But as I said, HeroMarine does have the ability to mix things up. He knows that in order to win a tournament, you have to do that. And we have been seeing a lot of different, totally viable ways of playing this matchup.
Yeah, I like the Viking opening with the Hellions. Very nice. Not playing to the same degree of greed, because you can do these builds and try to squeeze out that really, really fast third command center, but since he's been out on the map applying this little bit of pressure with even just that Reaper and now with the Hellions, it gives him vision, right? He kind of has some idea of what's going on. Since it's mostly just Zerglings, he doesn't have to worry too much, but we haven't seen actually this Raven opener versus Zerg as much as when it kind of first started popping around, but being able to push creep spread back is really big, and something that never really gets talked about, but since there's an armory on the way, I'm going to say it, and a third command center, if he follows, regardless whether he follows up into mech or not, the Raven has a weird capability if this type of attack comes in, because if a Zerg player tries to rely too much on the queens and that Raven gets a bit of energy, interference matrix works on queens.
Yeah.
So you can block them, and also you can use the anti-armor missile against them. With the way that the Hellion and / Hellbat AoE works, you can hit almost all of the units, and that -2 armor that all the units would be put on, -3 armor for the Ling, since there are no upgrades right now. There's really a lot of potential to catch them off guard. And I'll say, I've used anti-armor missile on queens before, and it does allow Hellions to do quite a bit more damage than normal.
I'm even thinking against those Banelings, right? They actually do not take any extra damage from the Hellions, so they reduce the armor, and you actually get a nice shot off. Then maybe that can be something.
Yeah.
And then that is, provided you don't just immediately transform them into Hellbats, and they don't have the range and they're slow, which HeroMarine's not doing actually, despite getting a armory that could have been a Hellbat attack. He's just using them as Hellions.
Yeah. Zombie Grub, Banelings. These Hellions are going to start poking forward. So he gets a couple of pickoffs on him, but you can see some of those Banelings left with 7 health after a few hits.
Yep.
The Hellions do 8 damage against units that they don't have any bonus against, and the Banelings have 30 hit points. If you were to hit them, this Viking's poking in the main, but if you were to hit them with an anti-armor missile, the Hellions would do 11 damage per hit and would 3-shot them rather than 4. So that, in a big engagement, ends up mattering a lot when you're dealing with AoE passing through everything.
There's the math to prove it. But HeroMarine was not so keen on doing a Hellbat attack, which I actually absolutely do not mind. He's gotten some really powerful macro behind this, since he was really quite safe. He saw that it was Ling Baneling and not even that many Banelings. And while Elazer, like Ditto, is not going for being aggressive, he's not looking to counter and trying to take advantage of, like, if he had Gone Roaches, for instance, we are seeing a very good setup for both races into the late game. We were on year 0 after all, so I guess that only makes sense. But with the addition of HeroMarine's Creep Deny with that Raven, which provided that nothing else happens in this game, like, he can focus entirely on, right? I
love it. Really, this becomes, it's a little bit of this like map control, and it's also a little bit of protect the president type thing, where you want to keep that Raven alive. As long as the Raven is alive, there's a huge amount of harass potential, just because he can constantly poke and clear at the creep without having to burn his scans. And without that creep, it's going to be very hard for these Hydralisks to just run across the map. It's going to be hard to try and do things like Baneling run-bys, and this allows him to build up that army behind it, and soon Cyclones will come in. And without creep spread, those Cyclones having the maneuverability of the open field, it's really going to allow them to do a lot of damage. So HeroMarine starting to bring a few of them out. He's got his Magfield Accelerator complete. He's going into Blue Flame. 1-1 for mech is done. Really good upgrade setup, but that Hive is about to finish. So let's see how Elazer responds. And typically, Vipers are very good at dealing with Cyclones, but you need to get a good amount of them, as the Cyclones can still pick and prod away at these armies. And you really need to be careful with the Baneling count too, because once there gets enough Hellions, it's not a bad idea to even just suicide them in onto the Hydras, as long as they can kill them.
Yeah. The lack of creep spread to the south makes this an easy target. Cyclones come in, Cyclones go out, kill most, if not all of the Queens, 2 barely surviving, and are going to get more lock-ons on these Hydras without the presence of 3. Without the presence
Raven
of Vipers, I think the Raven, barely survived.
I was going to say, I was actually about to compliment him on keeping the Raven back during that first poke.
You know what?
But if he had lost it there, it would have been very sad. Interference Matrix works on Vipers too,
Yeah, it does. That might have been the difference of having Hydra range, which is only just finishing up. So lucky.
Are you telling me that upgrades matter in this strategy game, Zombie Grub?
Apparently, and apparently with us, it's always the Hydra range.
Yeah, I was in Twitch chat before this game. Everyone told me it just depended on what race you picked, so I don't know.
Nah. Yeah. Well. Not a bad little start there for HeroMarine. I mean, obviously it's not game-breaking. I think both of these guys knew they would be coming in here with each other's style. Elazer would have expected HeroMarine to go Hellion Cyclone, especially on year 0, and HeroMarine probably knew Elazer would know that. But HeroMarine's Raven usage, denial of the creep spread, his extremely strong macro behind this with 2-2 almost finished, and 4th base already up, turning into a planetary. I feel confident for HeroMarine, but Elazer really hasn't gotten to show his stuff yet, right? No major engagement has happened.
I do think the Raven's about to die. It's a giant target for the Viper. It's got 200 energy. It's not going to be able to use it. I mean, I can see the abduct happening as soon as he's... Oh, wow, there you go. 4 interference matrices over the Vipers so that they cannot cast their abilities, and HeroMarine is just going to come up and fight. He wants to do-si-do with these Cyclones and Hellions against the Hydras, so no abducts are able to come into play for the first beginning portion of this fight, but maybe not enough support from the Hellions and Hellbats to actually deal with them.
That was really weird. Like, I mean, obviously the best thing about abducts is that it brings the Cyclones to you. But in that engagement, HeroMarine on a choke with his Hellions behind his Cyclones, you're just like, please, take these Cyclones.
He's like, you can't pull me in to fight you, so now I will just pull myself in to fight you.
Yeah, it was... Some of that had to do with the Hellions backed up behind the Cyclones, yes, but it just was like, it's not what Cyclones are supposed to do unless you're really surely confident that they will win the fight, which that was just not the
Cyclones
case.
Don't really win head-to-head like that against the Hydralisks, and more importantly, Cyclones cost a lot more than Hydras. Like, Cyclones are like double the cost of a Hydralisk, so if you're trying to trade out with an even number of Cyclones versus Hydra, you're not winning that fight. It's also, of course, Zerg has a lot of bases, but yeah, Elazer should be able to just kill him here. It's one of those moments when you're like, well, I guess I kind of wish I had tanks, but there's still Vipers, so it wouldn't matter then anyway.
Yeah, just abduct more. That was a game-ending mistake, absolutely. He had free reign to run back and say, you can't touch me for another minute here. He had everything set up to get into a super long game, and then we're talking about starport transitions and all that, but when the actual fight came to be, Elazer absolutely took it, and while I guess it's too big of a map to really end the game here, he took at least the SCVs to the 3rd base down, so 31 SCVs down, so much of the army down, and Elazer is on 5 bases himself with very consistent income, so he should still be winning this game.
Yep. Oh, HeroMarine is still very, he's in a rough spot. I mean, Elazer can try to throw this one, but I don't know that he really can, because he still has everything behind this to make it look good, but he did manage to throw away all of his Hydras without killing any of these bases, and he did manage to blow through his whole entire bank rebuilding it.
Oh my god.
But I think with the gas he has, he could just crank out like 6 more Vipers and just start abducting Cyclones again and winning.
Yeah, well, one of the big things there is that he sent his Vipers back to go.
Right. Oh yeah, he still has them. There you go.
Yeah. He lost 76 Hydras at the end of that, by the way. That was quite a lot to go down. Without the Lings or the Vipers, it does get a little bit easier for the Cyclones. But yeah, as we were saying, just the momentum, the income here for Elazer, the production capabilities, and now the Spellcasters should be enough to certainly break this space again, but also just break HeroMarine.
Yeah. I was going to say, we usually see like much higher resources lost in terms of the actual number of resources, but Elazer is just he's just drowning him in the blood of his own units here, constantly pushing and just saying, well, you're never going to be able to set yourself up with anything, even if you do hold these waves. GG! Elazer takes game number 1 against HeroMarine. And I go back to what you were talking about, Zombie Grub, taking that fight at that ramp. The Hellions and the Hellbats are not just a part of this army because they do bonus light damage. It's because they're very cheap, and putting them up front to take damage and die is the most effective way to use them most of the time. But HeroMarine's early game harass was great. Loved his usage of the Raven. The Cyclone Hellion is the type of weird army where, you know, as cheap as Cyclones feel with how weak they are in terms of their hit points. They're not very durable. They're very glass cannon-y. They still take a lot of money to build. They still take a long time to build. In factories, of course, you only ever have so many of them. So losing a big fight like this was always going to put him in a spot where Elazer will do just what he did. Just continue to push and punish him heavily, since it takes a long time to rebuild all those Cyclone Hellion. Yeah,
that was the game-defining moment right there we just saw, and It's one of those things where HeroMarine, I actually kind of, I guess, exaggerated it in my head that it was even worse. But you could see he was like, yes, I take this fight. And then 5 seconds later, he's like, no, I don't take this fight. And he did try to retreat, but by then the damage was already done.
And those lings that came in from the back, like,
yes.
it was the perfect...
It also was the interference matrix wore off. So not only did he lose too many to begin with, but then he's like, Vipers, I don't have to worry about them. Oh no, wait, here they are again.
Cyclones have 5 range on their auto attack. So in a situation like that, when their lock-on's on cooldown, more of the Hydras are able to shoot. Also, Hydras are smaller, so more of them fit into that space to shoot. Cyclones are, they're dummy thick. They kind of block each other from being able to shoot in normal fights when they're not able to use lock-on. For reference, the lock-on range to initiate it is 7. So it's a lot easier for them to make that play, which is why you usually see them kiting and not being attack moved like they were up a ramp.
Yes, very deliberately he thought he was going to win that fight. Hellions were barbecuing Hydras left and right, and then Hellions died and so did Cyclones. Very quickly.
I would make the comment about how overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer, but he died instantly there, so...
Pretty much. So that's kind of a sharp turn right there, you know. You get your setup. You literally spend 8 minutes getting your setup, and you're like, I'm good to go, aren't I? Like, this is going to be great. And then you just very quickly die. Always feels bad, but especially I think for a guy like HeroMarine, who really thinks that if he gets into such a position, he will be able to do what he wants. So, you know, eventually transition out to Liberators and we win.
I wonder if the vision was an issue there, too, because... Like, in a lot of those situations, when you're playing with that ramp, like, he lost the Raven, right? So he didn't have anything that could actually see up the ramp without attacking up it. So maybe he felt like he couldn't try to do lock-on micro. I don't know, but I will say that I would like to see him try it again. Maybe not necessarily this game. Maybe mix it up here, because he dropped the first map, and you don't want to spiral. But if he can recover decently here, I don't think that his setup was bad. I don't think the army composition is bad. We still see lots of people use it. The biggest mistake he made was really taking that one fight. And I know that that sounds like a kind of like a cop-out answer, but when you're playing mech, that is how it works. Your army is very expensive, very cost-efficient if controlled well, and the positional usage defines everything. He was in a really bad position for the fight. That's why he lost it. And any Terran player will tell you, if you have a big, chunky mech army like that and you throw it away, you almost never, ever, ever come back to win. It's extremely difficult.
Yeah, unless you had, as you were saying, like 5 tanks back there.
And even then, like, the Vipers could also come back into play, and you have to be really, really on top of stuff. So, and we don't really even see Siege Tank mech used much versus Zerg anymore anyway, because Zerg has so many ways of dealing with that.
Right, I mean, if you can get away with like not getting any siege tanks, just go right into the Cyclones.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Sometimes when you're a little cautious in the early game, you see like 1 or 2 pop out, but yeah, they would not have lasted very long. So HeroMarine has to reset here on a Kairos Junction. As you were saying, I don't mind him going Cyclone mech every single game, and I would argue that like 90% of the time, if not straight up to 99%, he does not take such a bad engagement. Maybe bad engagements in general, yes, everyone does. But that bad of one, probably not.
Zombie Grub.
What?
This factory's not by the barracks. And usually when a Terran player doesn't put the factory by the barracks, it is very deliberate, because we're all kind of programmed, like muscle memory, to do that. You know, kind of like how, like the way that the walls all look the same, unless you're on, what is it, New Repugnancy. But this makes me wonder if we're going to have like a mine drop or fast tanks.
So I'm going to guess fast tanks.
Could be 2 starport as well.
There are a couple different options. Last time I saw this done was on a different map with a very abusive edge. I think it was New Repugnancy, actually. And you can get a tank onto this, like, again, abusive ledge with a bunker.
Well, with the third on this map, it's very possible that tank play could be made here. He could also just go like really greedy 3cc and just have like a fast Viking and use a tank defensively in case Elazer tries to pull a Serral.
That's true.
Because Serral did
that
absolutely all in the heck out of his opponent on this map in the first series of the day.
That was kind of like for a while there were a decent amount of Terrans doing that variation, where they would just go right into the tank and defend and not even bother with Hellions, but it didn't really last very long.
He's opening with
this Banshees.
A couple of Marines, and he's getting a cloak Banshee with no Hellions.
So
this says to me, like, he's So the Banshee can be harassing, it can be defensive. This many Marines should be able to kind of defend against whatever. There's no bunker, but I imagine, yeah, it's going to be a siege tank to follow this up. I would have liked to see a greedier third command center with this. I think he's going to try and do some sort of push with that first tank. And I'm not feeling too great about it, but we'll see what happens when all these Marines are spotted by the Overlord.
That's the weird thing, is that for the Zerg player here, he doesn't get to see the factory isn't behind or anything, really. He just sees that there's a lot of Marines. And that would, like, usually point to a 2-1-1. Yeah, just generally. Or maybe, like, a fast third with the 2-1-1 behind it.
Yeah.
But
he hasn't scouted the main at all.
Yeah.
Showing these Marines, you could be onto something there, too. This could all just be a great bait play. But that's why I asked myself, where is the third command center? And, okay, there it is. But building it right in the face of the Zerg, it's like, okay, you're also sending a message there as well.
Yeah, you would also be able to tell it's not a 2-1-1 from that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would have been cool to, like, because Banshees never really they just don't really do that much. In this game, he actually finds some purchase. Really nice. Spore Crawler being late, nets him 6 drones. Okay, so I'll swallow, put my foot in my mouth for a moment there. What I was going to say was I would have liked to see him use the Banshee to get vision for the Overlord, but now seeing how much damage it's done, okay. I will take the cop out and say he obviously made the correct choice. Elazer was not expecting it, not at the third base at least. So this definitely got a lot done, but the Overlord was still able to see everything moving out, is my point. So he'll still be able to get a ground defense, which may end up being more important than that defense against the first Banshee.
No lair is quite done. There's a lot of things going into the play here, but what's kind of funny, actually I don't think it's going to go so well for HeroMarine. Well,
it's got target fire. The
almost dead, almost. Come on, Lings, do your thing. There's no upgrades here, so the tanks would take forever to kill. A couple of queens do go down, and the tanks finally do as well, but no Overseer means that maybe 2 more queens could die. They're out of transfuse. He wants both of them. He's trying to get them.
Whoop.
Get her. Oh, that was going to happen. But what was going into play there is that I do believe Elazer was setting up for a 2-1-1 defense. He had the faster Carapace. He didn't bother with the Baneling Nest like he would in the last game because he was worried about a Hellbat attack. And then he had a lot of queens, right? So there's a lot of things that said he thought it was going to be a 2-1-1, and when the push happened, he had to scramble together. And the only thing he could scramble together were unupgraded Lings and a bunch of queens, which did end up being enough to hold. But that was 5 queens dead.
And he's got a lot of Lings, and he's not doing a whole lot with it either. So, and the other impact, of course, of those queens being taken down is the creep spread, which he's going to start to push out again. But being able to spam out those tumors is really nice. Quick burrow. I wonder if he's going to keep that. We do oftentimes see early burrows get canceled. Some Zergs get like these crazy ideas in their head, dreams of grandeur, and then they settle back down to reality. They're like, all right, I'm not going to have a mansion. I'm going to have like maybe a nice small home to raise my family in. Banshees are going to go to the left side. There is a hatchery being built. Could maybe go for some tumors, but looks like he's going to try and get some drones first before he draws the attention of the swarm.
And then
he just flies away doing nothing. Cool.
Definitely could have gotten some damage. Okay, at least Creep Tumor's going to go down. But I certainly thought he was going to attack the Fort Base.
It's really tilting that it takes 3 hits for a Banshee to kill a
Creep Tumor.
Because that Creep Tumor goes down to like 1 health, and then that Banshee's got to do its whole 24 damage to deal 1. Plus 1 attack on Banshees. I only get it so that I can 2-shot Creep Tumors.
I pondered what would happen, how different the game would be if they actually just 2-shot Creep Tumors. But this attack was very swift. Elazer was not ready to go quite yet. This is actually not even an attack. This is just a would-be drop that just walked across, and now it was a drop.
That's nice. Yeah.
It's very nice.
I mean, Elazer's like, well, I took the northeast base as well, so I'm still rolling in the money. Tried to get a counterattack by the natural expansion, but was pushed back very quickly. HeroMarine has a good amount of stuff. I love the depots up front, the random depots. Like, sometimes when Zerg players set up outside your base initially, they don't get there in time, or they go a little bit too far ahead, and then they hit one of those depots and give you the alert that your base is under attack. Go defend it.
This is really nice run by defense. Super, super nice. Elazer is in a bit of trouble here. He has only 6, okay, now 12 Banelings, but they are making. And there are 3 tanks and a heck of a lot of Marines. Knock on his front door. They don't have quite enough combat shields, but that just might not matter as he takes out, I believe, half of the morphing Banelings.
Yep.
11 more somewhere, and he could potentially be sandwiched. HeroMarine's got to be a little careful about that.
Just be careful about the amount you're stimming HeroMarine, especially since the combat shield upgrade is not yet done. Goes to the flank from the south side, and there's really not too many Marines there. Really good focus fire by the tanks. So the tanks are going to get blown up. The Baneling get the Marines on the north side, though. So while he was microing that, he lost the bigger portion of his army. However, round 2 is here, and that siege tank is barely standing. Okay, the Banshee bros coming back. Getting some drone kills on the north side. We do have that hive tech. Adrenal Glands is on the way. Elazer, can he weather the storm?
I don't think he has enough units. The pre-splitting here from HeroMarine means that the Banelings are never going to get the awesome connections they were hoping for. He actually has pooped up once again, so maybe this is where they get their
Good
damage
split.
done.
Really good split.
But the third base goes down, the fourth base would shortly follow, and the splits ended up being good enough.
Hey, HeroMarine executes this attack flawlessly. Really, really well done. I love seeing him mix it up, because I was very confused about his opening. I didn't know what to make of it, but he did it exactly, I guess, the way that we kind of talked about, like on that third base, trying to take that position. He forced out a stupid amount of Zerglings, and Elazer thought that it was something that it was not.
Yeah, in the same way that we were a little confused, Elazer absolutely was as well, throwing off when exactly he goes for the drones versus the lings versus what upgrade he prioritizes.
Yeah.
He's
got him in a chokehold out here, and I don't know what Elazer does now. He's like, I'm gonna build 2 Ultralisks with no upgrades, and the Marines are gonna kill them instantly. Can the Banelings get on top of these Marines? Not all of them. And there's a rule for Terran versus Zerg. If you've got a couple of Marines and a medevac left over after the fight, you've won the fight, because that's all you need to kill most of a mineral line. These siege tanks are going to get encroached on by the Ultra, but even them on their own are able to shut that down because there's just nothing to support it. Banshee's finally dead, but the damage has been done, and another Ultra's going to come out and do nothing. GG, HeroMarine settles the score in our third best of 5 here.
A little worrying after that Year 0 game where he just gets slapped hard and the only fight really happens, but really bringing it back by changing up his style and his build.
Then that's a big strength of Terran, right? And honestly, that opening, could I tell you the last time I saw Reaper expand into Reactor Marine Banshee with a late tank for a 2-tank Marine Banshee push? No, I couldn't tell you the last time that I saw that. And I think Elazer may be thinking to himself, who does that either?
Yeah,
he had a bunch of Marines in a tank. This wasn't like a committed 2-on-1. No. He had double engineering bay, 3rd command center, and maybe a slightly later stem because of the way that he did it.
Yeah.
But he forced out so many Zerglings, and he tried to counterattack, tried to go back. It's like, no, there's a wall with the 3rd CC and 2 depots. And he didn't have the Banelings either. So
Right.
there was nothing he could do but sit there. And the worker count after that initial push, even though HeroMarine hadn't yet floated out the 3rd, I believe it was 56 drones to 52 SCVs. So he was in a really good position. As soon as he transferred workers to the 3rd and started muling it, he was on even income with the Zerg. And then, of course, we saw the Banshees get back into the harass during the big push with that base snipe on the west side. So HeroMarine, very, very intelligent build decision in that game, because I don't think that it's necessarily one of those really efficient builds. It was just a very well... there's a story to this where he shows something that doesn't really look like what it is. And,
yeah, he covered it really well.
Yeah.
I think that very specifically the lack of a Baneling nest, because we kind of remarked on that Overlord that wasn't taken out, and you're like, well, if we're going to build a Banshee, like, why not take out the Overlord, right? But it almost like it didn't matter, because the opener that he chose against what he thought was HeroMarine's opener was already kind of inefficient at dealing with that. Had he not thought it was a Marine-based opener, whether it's like a weird tank push or Banshees, or in this case, both, he probably gets the Baneling nest the same time he did on Year 0, which was kind of an anti-Hellbat timing one. And if he has Banelings for that first push, it's probably a heck of a lot easier to deal with. That alone made it a pretty big deal. So HeroMarine just playing with the opponent mind a little bit, something that Elazer probably wasn't expecting to have to deal with too much in this best of 5, but now we're all tied up, so we still have quite a few games to go.
Yeah, I like it. I like seeing that. I like seeing the big brain plays out of our Terrans. Zerg is definitely the reacting player in this matchup. Zerg does not really get to set the pace too much. The army composition is going to be heavily determined based on where the Terran wants to go with theirs. So let's see what HeroMarine wants to do on Cyber Forest.
Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is that he also delayed his lair, because again, you don't really need one fast for some of those earlier attacks, like a 2-1-1. So the Banshees not only did damage to the no spore crawlers, but they also were able to fire upon those queens.
Yeah,
There's
that's
no
true.
option to build an
They were
overseer.
big. They were very big in that fight. HeroMarine went for the gas first this game again with this barrack, so he's going to be able to get a very quick factory if he wants. Following his Reaper expand, it's the same. Don't know if he opened this exact same way on the first map. I think first map he went barracks gas, but I wonder if that means we're going to see this reactor marine play out of him again, which I wouldn't hate, because at this point Elazer has to mentally prepare for, okay, well, he just wrecked me with bio, and I know that he went Cyclone Heli in game 1, and game 1 was still a little bit of a wash, because HeroMarine actually had everything going about as well as it could for him up until he took that terrible fight. So that's not necessarily something that we can rule out from his arsenal in this match either.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been blown open a little bit there for Elazer, who might have been expecting the same kind of standard, whether it was bio or mech, both options, but more like off of the third CC.
That's what the other Terrans. That's what the other Terrans showed
Absolutely.
us, right? Soul and Euthermal kind of did very similar stuff all 3 games, but Euthermal kind of mixed up his openings maybe a little bit more. But now we get to see a little bit of that mech, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love the shakeup. So the factory is going to be planted down next to the barracks this time. Makes a lot of sense.
HeroMarine's SCV Scout goes to what is, I would say, like oftentimes the third, but Elazer not going to do anything scary.
And these builds can be a little bit. These builds can be a little bit Sweatstony sometimes, because he doesn't get the Marine behind it by going gas first, so he gets the faster factory and the reactor. But like, if those Zerglings had gone around the side towards the command center, there would be nothing there. So it's a little bit of a gamble sometimes to do this. This is why a lot of Terrans will open up with the barracks, then gas, because it kind of leans into getting the Marine after, so that the reactor lines up with the factory. But he's going to be able to, that's like a tiny little edge, a corner to cut, and he doesn't get punished for it in this game. That's a nice little grab there for HeroMarine.
Or even the CC first we were seeing from the last 2 Terrans would stop.
It feels really weird, but yeah, that CC first build is just safer, actually.
Against, what the early pools provide when you're not like super all in with them.
We don't really see people doing like the one base, like double gas Ravager all in. That build might be the one thing that like smites CC first.
Yes, I do believe so.
And even then, I think an SCV Scout can give you a little bit of wiggle room, but
maybe.
Yeah, that's I will spend some time in the lab figuring that out, because I want to go command center first now after watching GSL yesterday and these games today.
So nice little start in the harassment here. The creep tumor going down, the Reaper didn't, was just surprising to me. And the Reaper does provide a little bit of extra health to the Hellions if the Queens accidentally target it. We have fairly fast stim as the factory's already been repositioned, so he only went up to 3 Hellions. Yeah. So that's it, and he's right into the Marine production without a third CC, by the way, which the Overlord comes in here and is probably specifically looking for that, is going to be denied the usual timing, actually.
Bailey Nest starts right up, though. Really good call by Elazer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
he's thinking to himself, it could be Hellbats, I guess, but I mean, that's going to be really useful for dealing with a big Marine attack.
Yeah, so I think this is more of just like the standard, like the safety Bailey Nest he thought he didn't need last game, but he got the first game. And then he also saw not a lot of Hellions, so he knew there was only like, well, he counted them up, right? He saw that there were 3, which are going to be just enough to hold on to this awkward little run by, and everything survives too. So that might have been it. Did it actually also see the single engineering bay? It did. So there were a couple of things for Elazer to maybe determine.
That can be a tell sometimes. I mean, you don't see the second one. It could be in the main, but one engineering bay versus Zerg, 100% of the time is like some hugely aggressive push. Because in this matchup, you'd never go for one upgrade at a time if you have a third command center behind it, right? Like, it's a very normal part of the setup. That supply block actually slowed down one of his production cycles here too, which I think is maybe something bigger to be concerned about. Fourth base is going to start, and this little force that he has on the map needs to keep this creep at bay. Like, getting a couple of tumors that he can keep from being replaced would be massive.
Yeah. Has a fairly delayed layer. I mean, he started at 5 minutes instead of like 4. So we're going to have to worry primarily about centrifugal hooks being done or not, how long he can survive without it. But the good news is, with the bit faster single upgrade of a Carapace, he will have a matching upgrade to HeroMarine's +1. He should, with all those things we were just talking about, know that there is an attack, like an actual attack, not just a drop and not an attack a minute later on if there's a third CC.
Yeah. He's cranking out a lot of lings. He's got 8 Banelings on the way. That's going to be really nice. The Marine count currently at 20. He's bowling 5 at a time. And he stopped at 45 SCVs, and you already pointed this out, but there's no third command center, so this is a very committed attack. This is going to be a very dedicated assault by HeroMarine to try and take this game quickly. But oh my god, Zombie Grub, he is just cranking out so many lings. 22 more on the way, 3 more Banelings, and the most important upgrade in the game right now, Baneling speed, is getting ever closer. I mean, lings don't see a third. There's only one thing it could be. It's just be a big owl push.
This is just like reconfirming here, and then also if there is an attempted third slapdown location when HeroMarine realizes this might not work, it will be just ever so temporarily delayed. There's a decent amount of creep spread here. Elazer is going to continue buying time again for the Baneling speed, but actually letting a couple Banelings roll forward or walk forward into the Marines is exactly what he doesn't want to have happen. A couple of them get canceled as well, and HeroMarine not taking that much time to patiently clear up creep. He just stemmed forward and actually missed a creep tumor, so he's still going to be on creep. That's kind of scary.
His focus here is to just have the tanks move forward as aggressively as possible to try and zone away Banelings. How good will the target fire be? The Banelings are coming up. He does get a good shot with the tanks onto one clump, but a southern flank with the Banelings comes in, and now Bane speed is done. He's on creep. Goodbye, Marines. 1 medevac loads up 8 to escape, but 62 drones. Lair tech done. +1 melee starting, +2 carapace. Now there's a third command center. Now there's +1 armor. Now we have liberators beginning for HeroMarine, but it is all so late. The only thing he did was create some space for himself by killing those creep tumors, and he does have another big push ready to go once again.
And Elazer was left over with 11 Banelings, and now he has Baneling speed. The creep spread really wasn't pushed back that far, and he takes maybe an overly aggressive attack off of creep, but it seems to be because he can, as lings even come forward, are trying to run by for this round.
Great cleanup by Elazer, and with all the lings that he has in production at the moment, this gives him an opportunity to try and delay the third even more if HeroMarine tries to move out to it too quickly, but that's not even on the table. He's got the command center's not even done, 70%. He has to turn it into an orbital after that so he can get the mules. I wonder if he'll try to lift it over to the third base before transforming it. And I only mention that because there's so many Zerglings on the map that he could delay the orbital for it even longer than previously. In fact, his burrow's about to finish. He's going to need to scan to clear it out soon.
I do wonder if HeroMarine, like, there's really not an ideal plan from here on out. So even anything I throw out, I'm not really convinced it's going to work. But I do wonder if he maybe just uses it as that mule factory and actually does another follow-up push, right?
Yep.
And just is basically, again, all in on that idea.
I love that, the burrow on those bases. When the Terran is already, economically reeling, and I know you're thinking, it's like, well, he didn't really kill any SCVs. Yeah, but he didn't build SCVs either. So it's not like there's a crazy amount of money behind this. Look at all those mules. So burrow play here, potentially huge. I mean, Terran should always have a scan for the creep, but past that, a couple cheeky Banelings burrowed here could have catastrophic implications.
Yeah, and HeroMarine did stop. He just didn't even bother building really more SCVs. He might float it over, but it'll be blocked, and again, just going into the idea of an all-in. It could have surprised Elazer if Elazer had taken maybe a little more damage earlier on, But as he gets set up here, he is being patient. He's making sure he doesn't lose to this follow-up push.
You know, biggest problem right now for Elazer, he wants to try and wait for these Liberators to unsiege before he goes in, because they are the #1 threat. He does not have a good answer to them. Hydralisks are just now starting to come out, but the range upgrade's not going to be there yet. And with the support of the Liberators, these Marines and tanks present a very real threat to Elazer. HeroMarine can kind of pull back as much as he wants. Those Liberators are going to take out huge chunks of this army. Chose with a counterattack now, and SCVs are going to come up to repair, so he shouldn't be able to break that.
Yeah.
But HeroMarine's still distracted. I mean, I'd love to see him get some Banelings and just try to crack that open, but it's probably too late now with that tank finishing.
I think just most importantly, he stops the rally push. That's too many lanes still left over.
No, you're right. You're right. Stops the parade push, so these Marines are all kind of stuck now. There's no reinforcements coming in. Elazer is going to try to collapse. He gets the 360 surround. Everything dies. A lot of these Liberators are going to be pushed into by the Queens and the Hydralisks. And the Liberators will be the only survivors to tell the tale of the battle that took place on this day.
Oh, I love HeroMarine trying to make the best of a bad scenario. The Liberators were not able to be taken down. The Queens don't have the range. They're off creep, going up a choke.
I won't lie. I've seen so many Protoss players lose doing this same exact thing, except the Terran player doesn't have the third. And there's going to be a rude awakening when he realizes that he has to scan to clear his third out as he clears up these lings.
Yeah, so a couple things. There was a burrowed Baneling bomb that took out a couple Marines that we just kind of missed on the backside. I barely even caught it, but it was kind of cool of Elazer. And then here, Elazer also had the Carapace upgrade lead there, so he's really working well against these Marines.
Yeah, his Zerglings are really hard for these Marines to kill. That's a great point, Tommy Grub. And he's going to go float the third, but it ain't doing nothing. These Lings and Hydras are going to push straight in. Hydralisk right-clicking on those Liberators to get rid of them. And now the Siege tank's being swallowed as well. GG, Elazer goes up 2-1.
HeroMarine trying another like non-macro build there. I mean, he's really mixing things up, but I don't like that one really at all ever nowadays. Not to be dramatic.
Tries to play, I mean, you don't have a far rush distance to go to get to this high ground position that he was trying to attack from, which I guess is why these pushes might be good on this map, since that valley is a great spot to attack on. But there was a tiny supply block a bit earlier, and Elazer just read this so well with when he got the Baneling nest. We talked about centrifugal hooks being maybe a little bit too late if HeroMarine was able to get something done before Bane speed, but he wasn't. And as we saw, once Baneling speed was ready, Elazer didn't even mind going off creep just to make sure that he could clear this out. The Liberators were the only saving grace, but that's not going to be enough in a world where Queens and Hydralisks exist.
Yeah, to be clear, if Elazer had not really realized what was going on like 30 seconds later, then that's just a little bit less defense, and that's HeroMarine's first push, that really aggressive push that almost caught him without enough Banelings. That's when that actually wins, and then the build looks amazing. But considering that Elazer got all these tiny details pretty early on, I think you could see that he was specifically gearing up towards that with maybe he would have wanted a faster lair. Maybe that's the only thing he kind of missed out on timing-wise, but obviously it worked out. The Carapace eventually kicked in, it kicked in as +1 did, actually, so that worked out perfectly, and he was just well-suited to defend against it.
We're going to get into Game 4 in just a moment, but we're going to go to a quick break. Before then, we'll be right back. You guys are watching the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. Welcome back to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. We're for the Challenger Finals Europe Edition. And it is 7:47 in the morning here. We've got Automaton loaded up for game number 4. Elazer, 1 map win away from sweet, sweet victory, Zombie Grub.
Indeed. He'll get his tickets paid for to get to Ukraine, although I'm pretty sure it's not that far for him. But the better thing is that you get money, points, and
money's good.
Seating.
Money is always good. I think we all agree on that. The prize money would be a sweet thing regardless, but seeding as well is important. I mean, just getting into the later stages of the tournament, right? At that point, you're usually in the money if you're in like the third stage or you get to the bracket stage. So at that point, the seeding is also extra money. It's kind of like when we talk about the global finals, like just qualifying for it generally like guarantees you like thousands of dollars. So.
And in the format that we have, the new format, which you guys should check out, make sure that you're on top of things, because WCS Spring is really not that far away from here, about 2 weeks out after they're all said and done.
Yep.
Yeah, get yourself familiar with that. It is probably going to be a longer day for the poor souls who aren't seated in. So we already know how grueling those open brackets can be, and then in this format it might be even more grueling, so it's going to be nice and easy. I'm thinking we're going to see all of the Europeans basically show up regardless of whether they're seated or not, as the player list was announced, and you can check that out. And
well, Europe has this crazy thing called like public transportation that's like really functional and not crazy expensive. I don't know.
I mean, yes, but it also helps that you can cross like 5 countries in the same time that you cross like America, like the United States. So,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that works out too.
That's true as well.
Yeah. Anyways, but it's not over. It's not done yet. Actually, you know, HeroMarine. So last game tried something a little bit off, and maybe it was just simply too scouted too early, read too early, and of course we always have to give props to the people who can both read and really control the game after even reading it. So
I was gonna say just give props to people that can read in general.
Yeah,
we promote.
That's always good.
We promote literacy here.
We love reading Rainbow.
Can't imagine being. You imagine if someone could play StarCraft but couldn't read?
I actually could.
You just play by images. Someone's like, yeah, well, you know, I just kind of know everything without really knowing.
I mean, as long as they know like numbers, right? Like that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, as long as they can tell like when they're about to be supply blocked. I think we can do it.
There's a joke about Protoss players in there somewhere.
Somewhere along those lines. But HeroMarine, the first game was just odd. We kind of like threw that one out. Won the second game. He still has it in him to show us like what like typical HeroMarine does. Just like really good macro game.
Yeah.
Elazer.
HeroMarine may be suffering from that syndrome you sometimes see in the movies where like a ninja shows up to fight, but instead of fighting, he does like a bunch of really sick dance moves basically, and then falls on his face.
Yeah, like the guy in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
He just gets shot.
And I'm just like, well, okay, mixing it up is good, but going like you're getting into like the weird territories of some of these builds are quite ambitious. Yeah. I've never really liked the 2-base 3 racks pushes versus Zerg. I've never been a fan of them, and he did get close to being able to break him, but as we saw, Elazer reacted and responded appropriately. Just sending Zerglings to the thirds, he was always going to find out that something weird was going on because the Terran player wasn't taking a third.
But again, like if that had been like one of the last, like the first, rather if it had been the first thing he noticed, that might have been like a little bit late of a acknowledgement, right? But he got the scouting so soon. Like HeroMarine was so close to hiding that build, in which case it does a lot better.
Yes, that's very true.
But he was unable to. But I think your analogy is kind of spot on. Like HeroMarine, as much as sometimes it can be a problem that he's a little too predictable, there's a reason that he is and that he does still so well. Like he is just really good straight up. And if Elazer's not the one that's mixing it up, which, as I say that, he is the one mixing it up this game, of course, then HeroMarine should be willing to take it to the later game with him. But again, as I say that, Automaton, Elazer going for that 3:30 lair. He's been going for 5 minutes or even later lairs, like in the other games. So that's going to be...
with the Roach Horn, and he's taking 2 additional gases. So I'm wondering now if this is going to be maybe him trying to bring out his own aggression. We could possibly see a Nidus network, or just a fast Roach speed and try to get out on the map. Liberators are being built behind this with Hellions, so I think naturally this is actually just a good build setup to be in. No Ling speed means that without the Roaches actually being on the field, the Queens kind of have to lumber after these Hellions, and they do get a lot of drone kills. This is really, really good for HeroMarine, because I was thinking that we might see a Nidus, at which point he would need to start cranking out a bunch of units, but he has to replace drones that he's lost too, and if he doesn't replace those drones, then this becomes super all in.
Super weak, yeah. HeroMarine getting that scouts as well as those drones just puts him in a fabulous position. If it was a Nidus Worm, he would be cranking out a tank. You know, so if even the Queens were brought along, the Banshee wouldn't have done it. The tank would probably have done so. And if it's a direct attack, even an attempt at poking, which it might have actually been. It might have just been like what we saw Raynor do in his first game last series. You're just kind of like, hey, and then you back off.
Huge supply block for Elazer, by the way. Tries to get up an extra couple of Queens, and then starts 3 Overlords at once, so he hasn't really been building too much. You scan the third, you see no drones. I think for HeroMarine, he's building a Banshee, and he's got tanks coming out, so he's looking great. This Nidus got dropped way later than I think Elazer wanted to put it down.
Yes.
I think that Hellion attack with the Liberator poke delayed this build by like at least a minute.
Yeah.
And I don't see, unless he just doesn't see the Nidus as it starts, I don't see any way that this Nidus gets up.
Yeah, he
He's even
knows.
got the SCV patrolling. Yeah, he's very aware.
He knows, like, the lack of drones at the third base, and then you could even start seeing the higher Queen count. Like, those are the big things here. But he already started tank production, so as I said, even if the Banshees can't quite it, because there is an Overseer, there are Queens, the tanks properly protected should be able to do it.
There is a spot in the main that HeroMarine doesn't have vision of, but that's not where this Nidus is going to be built. He's going to throw it right up on tippity top. And he kept those tanks unsieged very intelligently. So he's like, yeah, I'll pull the SCVs, 2 Banshees with the Hellions. He should be able to shut this down. It shouldn't be able to finish.
So Elazer did, I guess, predict that. So he just busts right through the natural, and the tanks being on siege is now a problem. As they get on top of the supply depot, so close to doing so, but they do take out 1 tank at least. But here come the Banshees, and those Queens into the Nidus Worm. That's what needed it. Oh, hold on, there it is. Well, okay, hi.
Goodness gracious. Okay, the 3 trillion IQ play here by Elazer. I really like that, using that Nidus to bait the army up and then bringing the roaches to the main. If he can get this siege tank, that would be huge, but he's not able to do it. And those roaches get obliterated.
Well, he's got a lot more on the way. He's building more Queens. Now, these Queens are mostly out of chance fuses, but we have another Nidus Worm in the main base, so he can just get around the last tank. A Liberator tries to stop that from doing damage, but it's doing damage. So many SCVs are going down.
He done him a heckin' bamboozle zombie grub, and he's building the next Nidus next to the tank. He says, if I can't run up to the tank, I will tunnel underneath it. And there it is, finishing up right on top of the siege tank. That's one way to get 2 roaches on top of him. GG, HeroMarine gets brutalized by Elazer's back and forth game of Nidus whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
You got to leave something at the front. You got to have something in the main to deal with it. Just watching the way that he killed the first Nidus, he did it before the tanks even got there.
Yeah.
So in a world where he just has his tanks sieged up front and he knows that 2 Banshees, 4 Hellions, and SCVs can kill the Nidus before it finishes, maybe this doesn't work at all. But he overcommits to defending the Nidus in the main, and that costs him everything. Because I think if these tanks are left up towards the front with a few of the Marines, the Nidus Worm never gets up in either the main or the natural.
Yeah, and the roaches never get in the first place to even get the start here. Like, I absolutely agree. It's one of those, he did overcommit to the first Nidus Worm, but he actually had enough to deal with everything here had it been an absolutely perfect positioning. So Elazer takes the swift 3-1, kind of at the last second there, living up to what I expected from this series, which was he would mix it up. But while he takes that last game with his own mix-up, it was actually HeroMarine, throwing a bunch of Cyclones away, but then also kind of maybe like a too obvious mix-up on the third game that cost him 2 other games.
I don't want to take anything away from Elazer because he played really well in this series, but HeroMarine made a few really big mistakes. Like in that last game, he had everything he needed to defend against it. He overestimated what he needed to kill the Nidus Worm, and that's unfortunate, but that's the way it works. He made critical mistakes in 3 games, like that push being slowed down between the block and Elazer's good response on Cyberforce, but Year 0 shouldn't have ended the way that it did.
Nah.
And he's gonna probably be thinking about the Year 0 game for a while because he had Cyclones A move into Hydras.
Yep. Agree on that. That was
well. We do have another match coming up after this one, though. That's right. There's more StarCraft 2 action coming your way, baby. That is it for Elazer HeroMarine. He wins 3-1. But coming up next, we've got a smooth Protoss versus Protoss. I know what you're thinking. I hate TVZ. There's too much of it. Don't worry. We've got a fix coming up next.